The latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. Stitcher has signed Rory and Mal to their More Source network. It's the latest high-profile podcast signing from Stitcher. Not in the press release, any mention of Joe Budden, who fired the duo from his podcast in May. Earlier this week, we published data from Podtrac showing that Spotify is close to Apple in terms of US monthly users, but nowhere near in terms of US downloads. John Spurlock has calculated how many episodes Podtrac and the other analytics services measured in September. Spotify is breaking podcasts, according to a long piece in Wired magazine. We'll link to that today, with quotes from Kerry Hoffman from PRX. Meanwhile, Spotify is spending money to promote its advertising opportunities. There's a campaign called All Ears on You out now. The company's VP of Personalization, Oscar Stahl, has explained how personalization works at Spotify and details differences between podcasts and music. And Fortune magazine has a story headlined, Spotify, licensee of Joe Rogan podcast, says it won't allow inaccurate information. And we think our coverage is too sarcastic sometimes. Audacy has bought something for $40 million. The SEC report says it's a small digital acquisition, but gives no other details. Ads are more than twice as memorable if they're next to relevant content, according to new data. MediaTel explains conversational targeting tools and how Acast and DAX are using them for ads. Auphonic now has a native integration with Podbean. Podcast app Castbox is to be in cars. The company has signed a partnership with a company that provides apps for a variety of auto manufacturers. Writing in the Bellow Collective, Galen Beebe suggests listening to podcasts at 0.8 times speed to make time for yourself. For the Cairo Review, Kim Fox and Josephine Karianchi write African podcasting challenges and chances. And Technova covers the state of podcasting in Ghana. We'll link to those today, as well as to pictures from the Paris Podcast Festival, which has started. It'll run all this weekend. And the 2021 Discover Pods Awards have announced the finalists. Voting is open until 6 p.m. Eastern today. Now some People news. Theo Balcombe is to leave The Daily from the New York Times after 5 years as producer. I'm looking to dive into tape, hunker down with stories, edit and produce beautiful things, she says. John Hales has joined DAX as Chief Growth Officer for North America. He joins from Spotify. Alex Underwood has joined Verbal as Chief Revenue Officer. He'd been an advisor to the company since January, and he left Spotify at the end of 2019. And in podcast news, Shandy's Story is a new podcast from Hedley Thomas, the host of The Teacher's Pet, a critically acclaimed podcast that led to a new arrest. Another true crime podcast. It launches first in the app for the Australian newspaper. And Podland today has a long interview with Brian of London about Podping, Hive and dairy cows. Genevieve Hassan about how she got her podcast onto Virgin Atlantic aeroplanes, as well as plenty more comment about the week's podcasting news. If your podcast app has chapters, you can navigate through using those. If it doesn't, get a better one at newpodcastapps.com. And that's the latest from our newsletter. For all the links, we're at podnews.net.